Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Monday Project meeting. It is Monday, April 29th, our last meeting of April. As we get started, let's thank some friends of Mozilla. The developer relations team would like to give a big thank you to the Mozilla Tech speakers who gave talks this past week at various conferences and events around the globe. The past week, Mozilla Tech speakers delivered a combined total of a dozen talks and workshops at developer-facing events. Shout outs to Aya, Felipe, Flocky, Michelle, Juliana, Carolyn, Jennifer, and Yamama. We would like to thank you all for helping to spread your message about Mozilla and the open web. Let's give a big round of applause to our tech speakers. We've got some upcoming events this week. First, today, actually happening right now, the Homebrew Website Club. The Homebrew Website Club is in Virtual EU. The Homebrew Website Club is a growing worldwide network of meetups for all levels of web users who want to take back control of their online identities and content from the social media silos. There's a link to join the EU Virtual Homebrew Website Club event that's in progress now. Today through Wednesday, FITC Toronto 2019 in Toronto, Canada is happening. This is the future of innovation, technology, and creativity. It's a Mozilla-sponsored event, and there may be complimentary tickets available. You can check the link below to see if those tickets are still available. On Wednesday, a big day for the Homebrew Website Club. Meetups happening in Nuremberg, Germany, London, England, Nottingham, England, New York City, New York, USA, Guadalajara, Mexico, and you can find details and an RSVP link in the wiki. Thursday, we also have a Homebrew Website Club happening in Brighton, England, with details linked in the wiki. Saturday, we have Indie Web Camp, Saturday and Sunday. This is a 2-day maker event for creating and or improving your personal website, using it instead of social media, and exploring the edges of decentralized web interactions and development. On Saturday, the day one of this event, we have introductions, discussions, and brainstorming. On Sunday, day 2, it's a create, hack, dev, design, code day. We also have an Indie Web Camp in Dusseldorf coming up next week on Saturday and Sunday, May 11th and 12th. This 2-day maker event is again for creating and or improving your personal website, using it instead of social media, and exploring the edges of decentralized web interactions and development. There's a long list here of upcoming events throughout the rest of the year. We're going to skip that. That's just so that you can get tickets for things that are kind of further away and not the week of. We're going to start this week's project updates with Andrew Krug, Staff Security Engineer, Enterprise Information Security, with the Weekly Minute.
It's time for the Weekly Minute Update, where we tell you all the things IT is doing to empower Mozillians in their mission to keep the web a global public resource, open and accessible to all. Only 2 updates today in this very short but important IT Minute. Update number 1 is that we're Zooming. Zoom Day is May 6th, 2019. What this means is that you'll start seeing a Zoom button on all meeting room iPads in the coming days and get your personal Zoom meetings account by May the 6th. Any feedback on that, as always, goes to #AVOps on Slack. My second update is a non-traditional minute update, since generally we don't use this as a means of announcing departures, but this departure, as I like to say, is near and dear to me. On May 3rd, 2019, Mozilla will say farewell to our Director of InfoSec, Jeff Briner. In case you didn't know, he's my boss. Jeff has been a Mozillian for over half a decade, and if you've had the pleasure to work with Jeff, you know he really lives Mozilla's values in everything he does and all of his work. I know I speak for everyone when I say we wish you the best of luck on your next adventure, and we'll miss you. So hopefully you'll join me in a final tip of the hat to say farewell to Jeff. That's the minute, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Andrew, and farewell to Jeff. Next up, we have me with the Firefox Browser Weekly Update, and I actually have a follow-up, which is follow-up to the minute update. Please keep an eye out for email inviting you to activate your Zoom account and for invitations to the training sessions next week. That should be going out to Mozilla employees shortly. Firefox 66.0.3 is our current stable release, and it came out about 2.5 weeks ago. Firefox 67 is in the beta channel, and it moves to stable on May 14th, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Beta 15 and 16 go out this week. These are our final betas, so it's your last chance to get new work into beta before we move into the RC phase, when we're going to be very strict about any changes we take. Firefox 68 is in the nightly channel, and that ships to our stable release on July 9th. 68 is also our next ESR base, so if there's something you need to get in that's going to last for our one-year ESR cycles, please get those changes in. Next week, we begin the nightly soft code freeze. So if you've got changes that you want to land that get uplifted from 68 nightly to beta, if those changes are significant, they need to land this week and not next week being the soft code freeze. Over the last week, we've seen about 500 bug fixes landed on nightly, including these notable changes. We've streamlined the default browser flow for Fennec and updated the onboarding screens. As more users find their way to Fennec as a result of the Android browser choice screen in the EU, we want to make it easier to get started on Fennec. This is our Android Firefox browser. On desktop, the new Discovery stream has landed in the new tab layout. You may have seen this over the last week. The layout moves snippets up underneath the search box, and it includes 4 general interest recommended by Pocket Stories, then 4 stories for each of 4 or 5 categories of specific feeds. So this is just more stories on your new tab page in a new layout that should be, I think, interesting and exciting because it includes category feeds as well. We've got several picture-in-picture bug fixes, including hiding the picture-in-picture button in full screen and hiding it except on hover. As you may have noted last week, we enabled picture-in-picture mode, which allows you to set aside a video so that it is always on top for viewing while you're doing other things in your browser or other things on your desktop. When in dark mode, reader view sidebar toolbar controls are now dark too. Previously, when you switched to dark controls, you had a bright white stripe running down the left side of your screen where the toolbar was, and that was a little distracting for an otherwise dark reader mode. The accessibility color contrast auditor is considerably faster on pages with lots of text, where it has to do lots of auditing of that text. And Gecko now has support for the Resize Observer API. This API can use to detect when elements are resized and run some JS in response, all between layout and paint. Interesting new feature available for web developers. Finally, from Mozilla Dev Platform, Fennec will be following the 68 trains to ESR 68 based releases. We want to provide users with a secure and supported legacy Firefox for Android until Phoenix has matured enough for users to migrate to it. Therefore, starting from Gecko 68, we plan to use ESR 68 repository as a stable base for managing Fennec engineering, testing, and releases of builds going forward. That's it for this week's Firefox update. With that, we move on to Nathan, who has this week's Emerging Technologies update.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to give you the Emerging Technologies update. So there are 3 things I want to talk about. So the first is this Mozilla Web Things. So after 2 years of development, the Project Things effort is graduating from its early experimental phase and will now be known as Mozilla Web Things. This change in naming coincides with the latest release and is known as our Web Things Gateway. This introduces new features like interactive graphs of accumulated data, alarms, and enhanced network configuration. And in addition to supporting Raspberry Pi, the Web Things Gateway will also soon be able to be run on OpenWRT. And this is now aimed at consumer routers. The response has been great. There's lots of press that picked up on it. You can read about it on our Hacks post. In addition, in the Rust compiler team, Nico had a blog post around, he titled More Than Coders, where it talks about new efforts around creating better engagement with the community with this new working group approach. This is a way that we can bring in people who aren't just technical, writers, communicators, coordinators, and more to have greater involvement. Please check out his post for more on that. And then finally, there's a few more, a broader set of things around this Indie Web camp effort. So here we're talking about additional events in Berlin, Dusseldorf, and so forth, as well as this 9th annual Indie Web Summit. So this is where you can get involved and learn more about that project. There's more there in the weekly update. Thank you.
Thank you for the Emerging Technologies Weekly Update, Nate. I think we have a couple of more items that have come on the agenda, so let me reload. Oops. Next up, we have Mike Hoy talking about synchronous messaging at Mozilla.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to say, you may have seen this going back or going by on the internet recently. We've made the announcement that we intend to transition away from IRC and towards something else. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. I'll be publishing some more detailed requirements for that later in the week. We've got a pretty good requirements doc spun up so far, and I'll be drafting the evaluation frameworks shortly. After that, once we've got instances of the candidate technologies available and spun up, we'll start to talk more about getting people involved, about trying out the new possibilities, kicking the tires on the technology stack we eventually choose. I'm going to make that available publicly, the evaluation process, as well as the candidate stacks. One of the things we're going to be doing in this process is also wheeling out a new authentication system that the Open Innovation team, I should say, has been working on for a while now, that will allow us to have the kind of very open, human, and accessible conversations that we've always really valued on IRC, while being able to maintain decent moderation and community management tools in the process. So I want to say again that we really value the human connectivity, and we're putting a great premium on the ability to join Mozilla and to be able to make the experience of becoming part of the Mozilla project a good, effective, and really safe experience for anyone who wants to join us. Our main audience for this transition is, like the main audience for IRC at this point, are developers and people who want to try out our new products early on and contribute to the development of our products and our processes early. But there's some groups in here that I want to call out in particular as being, for lack of a better term, really high value customers of this process. It's not a great term, and I don't like talking like that, but it'll have to do. The first one is the developer productivity team. Whichever stack we end up going with has to work for Kim Moyer and everyone working under her, because we really want the system that we build to be something that is a force multiplier for everybody who's working at Mozilla and on Mozilla products. Right? This has to be a pure improvement over what we're working over the tools we have now, and I think we can get us there. The other one, equally important, is the accessibility team. Right? The candidate stack that we pick, the technology that we go with, cannot treat any group of Mozillians as second-class citizens. That's not an acceptable outcome for this process. And I wanted to make that really, really clear. This has to work for James Tay and his team. This has to work for Mozillians who have visual acuity problems, who have mobility problems, who want to participate, whatever their situation. Accessibility has to work here. I'll have more to talk about soon about this and more information that we're going to make available. As always, if you have questions for me, you can email me. If you want to talk about this stuff, there is a synchronicity channel now, both on Slack and on IRC, and those are good places to discuss this as well with concerned citizens who also have opinions, like I'm sure you do. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mike, for that update. Next up, we have Joe Fish talking about Mozilla research grants. Hey, Joe.
Thank you. So I'm happy to announce the most recent round of the Mozilla research grants. This is a way in which we encourage Mozilla's resilience by engaging with the larger research community. So I'm pretty excited by this. What we've done this time is we've collected 12 different topics from all over Mozilla of topics that we in ET think are really important and want to see university research to support. We've got we've put it out, people have about a month now to put in a proposal about the work that they do. There are all sorts of topics, and it's worth looking through to have a look at this stuff. There's stuff about figuring out what the user interface is for resource permissions in WASM, digital trust in emerging markets like Indonesia, figuring out how we can put R, the popular stats package, into Iodide so that we can use that on the web. Resolving values conflicts. How do we do things like that? How do we, if you believe something deeply in your soul and someone else believes something different, how can we resolve those sort of questions? Mixed reality on the web, continuous voice recognition, super private browsing mode, which I think is to the tune of a song from Mary Poppins, super hyper browsing mode, which is about putting Tor into Firefox. What would that mean if we actually did that? So there's a bunch of interesting stuff. Click through either onto the direct research grant proposal page there, or onto the tweets that we've got. There's an individual tweet for each one of those topics if there's one you're particularly interested in. And I'd love your help in getting the word out so that we can get the best researchers, the best universities in the world solving problems for Mozilla. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe Fish. Some really exciting research proposals there. I hope we get some good candidates. As Joe Fish said, please retweet to get the attention up. We do not have any new hires this week, so no new introductions. With that, we will be wrapping up. I'll see you all next week at the same time, same place. Until then, keep on rocking the free web.